Welcome to episode 0 of the Under the Fatherhood podcast. We got my fellow co-host here, Blair Stevens.
That's me. Got my fellow Chris Joseph on the other side, aka Chris Todd, aka Marvel Universe, aka Thor, aka Trader.
All right. We're going to start off this podcast by giving a little background on why we're doing it, why we're starting it. Comic books played a huge part in my growing up. My Uncle Richie, who Blair has met multiple times, got me into comic books at a very young age. He's got the biggest collection that I've ever seen.
Boxes and boxes full. I'm talking not just small cardboard boxes. I'm talking full room length file boxes full of comics that you like. I've never even heard of.
Yeah, I mean, he's got DC, Marvel. He's got some random ones. I've seen Archie in his comic collection. I mean, it's all encompassing.
Yeah. He and you both introduced me into comics. I mean, Batman is my favorite comic character, obviously, as I'm sporting a Batman mug. And I have some Batman comics behind me, but Batman is my favorite character. I started getting into comics a little bit in the 90s when I was watching the Batman animated series. We used to have VHS tapes. One of them was the episode when he follows the Riddler into the Minotaur maze and he has to get out of it. That was really my introduction to that and Mask of the Phantasm, which is my favorite. But I met Chris in college, LVC, in 2010. And before that, I hadn't really collected comics or been a comic reader. I just liked comic characters and comic movies. So Chris really introduced me into the publication side of comics and got me into actually reading them and diving deeper into stories. He's still teaching me things, about Legion of Superheroes, teaching me things more about Red Hood, teaching me things more about Guardians of the Galaxy and all of these things. So him and his Uncle Richie really played a big part in my comic journey, getting where I am now, where I actually collect them. And very, very grateful for that. Very grateful. How'd you get into comics, Chris?
So I remember learning Kung Fu at the age of about 5 years old, starting at Uncle Richie's office. And in between classes or before classes, he had a TV for the kids and, set up in his office. And Batman, Mask of the Phantasm was one of the VHSs that he had on tap there. And I watched it probably 100 times, over the years. And, we would go every Saturday, we'd go to the comic book store after we were done training. And, so that it just started very young, watching Batman, the animated series, Justice League, Smallville, which is to this day my favorite TV show of all time. Blair does not agree with me there. It was a growing experience with TV shows like that were on for 10 seasons, comic books in general. You can ask my wife, our wives will probably be on here at some point. Our kids, once little Grayson is born, is going to be on here. That's
the seed enters the world.
That's the reason we want to do this podcast, is because, comic books and superheroes were such a big part of our lives growing up. And the way that the world is right now, we feel like you need different perspectives on things other than what you're getting mainstream, so we want to give maybe a more conservative fatherhood type of perspective on comic book superheroes and the state of all of that in today's world.
Yeah, we definitely want to come at it at a viewpoint of two guys who have loved comic books and characters for as long as they can remember, and have a really deep affection for how these characters are treated and how the legacy of these characters are going forward, not only for our children, but for other people's children. You know, the Batman that I grew up with and love so much, I want my son and his friends to talk about the same Batman that I grew up with, you know? So we're coming at it, you know, at it as a viewpoint, not to trash anybody else's viewpoints, but to give our viewpoint, because we feel like that, you know, you are really only seeing one side of the coin when it comes to mainstream ideals, not only in, you know, any aspect of entertainment, but also in the publication side of DC Comics, and you know the repercussions that that has had in the sales of DC Comics as a whole. And you know we definitely want to come at it straightforward. We're going to give you our straightforward opinion. We're not going to beat around the bush. If we don't like something, we're going to tell you we don't like it, and we're going to tell you why we don't like it. And if you don't like that, well, welcome to the world where people don't always agree with you. But yeah, we definitely aren't going to be aggressive or anything like that with our opinions. We just want to give our opinions, and we talk on the phone almost every single day for hours about nothing. And really how this came about was Chris, when we talk about comics on the phone, just random things. One of us will say something, and we'll just go on a 2-hour discussion about comics. And you know, Chris came to me, why don't we put this? Why don't we put this on YouTube? Why don't we record our conversations? We talk about it all the time. When you know, might as well record it and see if other people agree with us and want to discuss it with us, and you know, give their feelings on it. See if other people agree with us. So that's really why we're doing it. We're not doing it to be, you know, big YouTubers or old men who just love comics. And our setup is very rudimentary at the moment. Probably not going to get any better. But yeah, we're definitely excited to start this and see if anybody else enjoys it or watches it. So yeah, I'm really excited to get this going with my brother Chris. Probably, you know, not probably, but is my best friend. So it's definitely good to do this with somebody who loves comics just as much as I do. We dabble in every single facet of comics. We both play DC Universe Online.
Yep.
We both have backstories for our characters. We both play the Division, which isn't comic book related, but we make backstories for those characters too.
Yep.
You know, that's just you know, the type of people that we are. We love our wives, we love our families, we love traditional American values, and that's really all there is to it.
Yeah, man. You know, it's tough to put into words our relationship. You know, I mean, we met in college, like you said earlier. You know, and that was going on 12 years ago at this point, which hurts to say. You know, we did, you know, the college thing for the time you were at LBC. I met my wife in college.
Yeah.
We got married just in 2017. The year after, Blair and Corinne got married. Both of our wives.
I got married in
2000.
I got married before you.
Yeah, I said the year after you got married.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There I go. That'll probably happen a lot.
Podcast. We're gonna you know, get that out of the way right now. There are times that Blair will call me because he wants to have an argument with someone and he knows that I'm always down.
No, it's just a better arguer than you. And any argument we ever have about why Man of Steel is the best comic book movie that there ever was and ever will be, I always win. And there's just nothing to it.
Look,
I don't call you specifically to get all your nerves. You just get on your nerves because I'm better at you than arguing. That's all that is. And the sooner you realize that, the sooner this relationship can move forward.
This is what I've dealt with for the past 12 years. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is my life on a daily basis, and I wouldn't have it any other way. You know, we started playing DC Universe when that first came out back in 2010, 2011. You know, back on the PlayStation 3.
PlayStation Trace.
Yep. We started playing that. Our wives would probably say we play too much. You know, but that's the way we get to bond. You know, Blair's in Virginia now. Hopefully in the future, the very near future, he's going to be moving down to Florida. I moved back to Pennsylvania after I got out of the military. That was another facet of our lives that we spent together. You know, in 2013, I joined the Navy, and then a year later, Blair joined, came down to Virginia, and we lived together for a little while, and then you know, went our separate ways once we got the wives to move down. But you know, we still try to keep in touch, obviously, talk almost every day, like we said, and you know, DC Universe is a way that we can do that, you know, and keep that alive.
Yeah, it definitely shows the bond that people can share over comics, because I think that the greatest bond that we have is both our love for comics.
Yeah.
And it has really fueled our friendship for as long as we've known each other. I mean, we still bond over DC Universe Online. We started playing when we were 21, and we're both 30 now.
Yep.
And, you know, that really just shows you how strong comics are in people's lives, because, you know, Chris will call me up or send me a long, huge 2-page text about, I just came up with a backstory for my character.
Yep.
And I'll call him, and then we'll just start brainstorming. And then all of a sudden, hey, we have 2 characters that are coming from the future to stop the events of deceased. You know, and we intertwine that in with, you know, the events that are happening in the game. But believe me, we'll get into all of that. You know, we have conversations for hours. So I mean, we have tons of content, and we both love to talk. So definitely things that we're going to get into. But you had mentioned something earlier about you kind of got into comic books and comics in general, not only from Uncle Richie, but from watching Batman the Animated Series, right?
Yes.
And I had stated that Batman the Animated Series was also my introduction really into comics. And I feel like for a lot of 90s kids, that was their introduction to comics. Batman
Absolutely.
was really their first thing that they fell in love with about comics and comic characters, even before they picked up a comic book. You know, it just seemed like every kid in my school knew about Batman the Animated Series, or had one of the shirts or one of the toys or something. So being as that was such a big impact in our lives, why do you think that Batman the Animated Series was such a huge gateway for so many 90s kids who fell in love with comics into this genre?
I think that you know, one thing, you know, speaking for me, it really brought me deeper into the Batman and the DC universe. You know, I thought that the Batman the Animated Series did such a good job of introducing characters that I never even knew about, or that were never introduced before that series. I mean, you know, Harley Quinn, that's the first time that we see Harley Quinn in the DC universe. And now you have a movie, you know, I mean, very recently, the Birds of Prey movie that was based around that character. You know, I know that we have our opinions on the Birds of Prey movie, and movies like that, which you guys will hear. You know, we will watch movies that we probably haven't seen yet, you know, and maybe do some reviews, and, you know, maybe we'll read some comic series that we haven't read yet. But, Yeah, I mean, Batman the Animated Series to me was just such a cool idea, and it brought in, you know, just so many different characters, and you know, that iconic Joker laugh that's in that series. You know, it's just it is something that I remember very vividly to this day, sitting down on a Saturday morning watching, you know, Batman the Animated Series. Um, it's just it's one of those things where you know, I sat down and you know, had my daughter sit with me, and we watched a few episodes, just and it was, you know, I was right back there, you know, sitting there eating some you know, some cereal on a Saturday morning.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Batman the Animated Series really showed me that comics just aren't silly. Because the only comics I had known existed were the comics that my grandfather got in Sunday paper.
Yeah.
There was Archie, uh, Beetle, the guy in the that always would like fall over. He had the army uniform on. Garfield, all those comics, all those Sunday comics, and I thought they were just goofy little comic strip, little one-liners and stuff like that. But when I first saw Batman the Animated Series, I was I wasn't scared as a kid, but I knew to take this show seriously because it presented itself seriously. It didn't present itself in a way where it was goofy or campy or anything like that. And I actually saw the Batman the Animated Series before I saw the 1989 movie. Um, I only watched the 1989 movie because of Batman the Animated Series.
Mm-hmm.
Even even movies that came before it, it introduced me to the character so much so that I went back and watched those movies. I watched, you know, Batman 1989. I watched Batman Forever. You know, all of that, and it traveled with me through the rest of the 90s, where I watched Batman and Robin, and even into my teens. But I just think it had so much impact on kids' lives because it was good. You know, if it was a bad cartoon, it wouldn't have the impact it had or the longevity it has because people wouldn't take it seriously. The fact that it has won Emmy Awards and it's been lauded by critics, and Mark Hamill's performance was so iconic, and Kevin Conroy's performance was so iconic, and it introduced Harley Quinn, who's such a beloved character now. I really believe that that's the reason why it you know, has been so popular even now, even it debuted in 89 or 90, something like that. And in 2021, people still talk about it. People still have to pay for it on Amazon. They don't give it away
Yeah.
for free. I know a lot of things on Amazon they give away for free, Batman versus or Batman the animated series, and ain't one of them.
Nope.
That just goes to show you how popular it is and how much impact it has in people's lives. And I don't think that we will ever get a cartoon that has that much emotion, that much heaviness in it, because I feel like now comics they need to entertain instead of like not teach, but they need to their main source is to entertain, not
Mm-hmm.
tell. Batman the animated series told you a story, and it was presented as if it was a feature film.
Yeah.
Now with things like Teen Titans Go, you're not supposed to take Teen Titans Go seriously.
No.
Present itself that way. I just don't think that we're in a time where we're really going to get anything on the cartoon side that's really going to rival anything that, you know, Batman the animated series or Batman Beyond for that matter.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think that we're way past that. Really, I really do.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. You know, by no means are we saying that these characters that are in these books are people that you are supposed to look up to as your hero or anything like that. You know, I mean, you know, we've had multiple conversations. You know, my hero is absolutely going to be my dad. You know, I mean, that's what it is. And you know, as a father, I hope that, you know, my kid or my kids, you know, someday say that same thing about me. You know, I mean, that's why we do it. That's why we want to be able to set that precedent and set those, those standards that they want to end up following, for the rest of their lives. But the comics did teach us something. I feel like some of my favorite comics were the ones that were heavy. I remember in one of my favorite comic series, Red Hood and the Outlaws, New 52. One of the main characters, Arsenal, it struggles with alcohol abuse. He goes day by day, and that is a struggle that he has to get through. And those kinds of lessons, I feel like, are getting lost the further that we get into the comic books. The newer comic books, like you said, with the Teen Titans Go and shows and comics like that, they're not real anymore. It's sunshine and it's rainbows, and that's not the world that we live in. And if you if you follow or if you watch any sort of TV, doesn't matter what you watch, Fox, CNN, anything, you're going to realize that it's not sunshine and rainbows. And comics, back when we were growing up, I felt like they did a really good job at showing the real world in a fantasy aspect.
Oh yeah. Jumping off that point, I remember a Green Lantern run. The name the writer for it. He was dealing with issues, dealing with riots and things of that nature. As we get the SJW culture, it's becoming more of how can we include a small fraction of the population on Twitter rather than let's tell good stories about the real world that we live in, that people can relate to. You know what I mean? It's putting a plus size Wonder Woman on a cover that's not relating to anybody. Wonder Woman is somebody you're supposed to look up to. You're supposed to aspire to be like Wonder Woman. You're not supposed to relate to Wonder Woman. What you relate in comic books aren't the characters, but the stories that the characters go through. That's the relatable part about comic book. Because there is a person out there who can relate to Tony Stark's struggle with depression and alcohol. There's people out there that can relate to Arsenal's drug problems, his drug struggles. And there's somebody who can relate to losing parents like Bruce Wayne. And there's a person that can feel like being an outsider like Superman, being from another planet and feeling like they don't belong. Those are the stories that we're supposed to be able to relate to. We're not supposed to be able to relate to Superman because he's an alien from another planet who can fly and shoot lasers out of his eyes.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be like that, but you're supposed to aspire to be how Superman is as a person and relate to the stories he goes through and be inspired to deal with those situations the same way Superman does, because he's a hero.
Yes.
Supposed to aspire to deal with situations the way that Batman does because he's a hero, but you're not going to be Batman. So changing the color of Batman's skin to try to make him more relatable not only takes away the character, but by doing that, you think that you're making him more relatable to people when in reality, you're taking the most relatable aspect of comics, the stories, out of it, because now you don't think that you need to have good writers and write good stories, because you think that everybody's going to be okay with just a baseless attention grab, cash grab.
Yeah.
And I think that's just being lost. I seldom pick up a comics series anymore and remember it. Remember the story and be like, you know what, that was a really good story. And 5 years from now, I'm going to relate. I'm going to, recollect that story. I'm going to think about that story. The last one that I feel that way is Deceased. And Chris and I have both read Deceased. I actually got Chris into Deceased because raving about how amazing it was. And the one before that was Doomsday Clock.
Yep.
He's yet to read, which he will read.
I will read it. One thing that you guys, hopefully, the deeper we get into this podcast, that you'll realize about me is I'm very set in my ways. I don't.
Understatement of the
I don't branch out much when it comes to comic books and really almost anything in life. I mean, uh, I like Red Hood. That's my favorite character of all time. Blair knows that I've read every single issue that Red Hood has been in comic books. I
real character is named Christopher Todd.
Yes, it is. I mean, I look. I got a gun here. I got I got a Red Hood theme going. That's my boy. But I read him. I read realistically, this is more so going to be a DC podcast. Not that, I have a bias against Marvel. Either one of us, Blair will read a good comic book if it presents itself. But it's just, I don't branch out. I don't. And Blair has gotten me to, over the years, begin to branch out a little bit more. Deceased was one of those times. And Deceased Unkillables is one of the greatest comics I've ever read.
If nobody out there who watches this has read Deceased, not only Deceased Unkillables, but Deceased 1 all the way to the last issue that they printed with the Deceased title on it, you need to read it because it's incredible. The whole run is.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. I mean, we don't get paid for any of this. Obviously, this is the first episode we're doing. We're not in it for any sort of money, any sort of cash grab. We're just here because we love comics and we want to talk about them. But anytime that we can give you an honest opinion, we're going to. And Deceased is one of those comics that it really brought me back. When I read Deceased Unkillables, which, one thing you'll learn about Blair is Deathstroke is one of his favorite characters. Deathstroke is one of his favorite characters, and I got little Grayson his first comic book here.
He sure did.
I thought that was one of the coolest variant covers that I've seen, in my collecting of New 52. I read all the New 52 Teen Titans, and that one was one that stuck with me. And when I found out that Blair was having a boy, having a kid, really, boy, girl, doesn't matter. But I wanted to get something that he could have, from me, from me to my brother and his new child.
Yeah, absolutely. He called me and told me he bought Grayson his first comic book. I was really touched. I'm not really a crier. I didn't cry, but I was, I had a little bit of a lump in my throat because I know just how important these stories and these characters were to me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
For me to have my best friend who I can share these things with and I can call anytime when he's not working or either of us are not working, obviously.
Yeah.
Just sit and talk about these things that we love for hours. For him to be, have the the mindset to get my son something to start his journey with these comic characters with arguably my favorite villain aside from Black Adam. It really was something that I thought was special, and that will definitely be something that we frame, and I will obviously after I read it, but
it was, of course,
that we frame and we put up. And I just hope that anybody who loves these characters just doesn't let them die in their own imagination. That they branch out and they read other stories and they read other comic companies and they read other genres that they wouldn't really think, or like horror or drama, any of the variants, and watch TV shows and try to get into these things, that they also encourage their kids to do it as well. These characters live and die with us.
Yes.
We don't keep spreading the joy and the word of the characters, they're eventually going to go away. It's hard to think about a world without Superman or without Batman, But that, that could very well be it if we don't share the original iterations of these characters and we just continue to allow people to change them here and there, and then all of a sudden you don't recognize them anymore. So we hope, another thing that we hope with this podcast is we hope that we can just spread our joy of the original characters, and there will be plenty of things on here. Like we said, we both love DC. I'm not a Marvel hater. I just hate the movies for various reasons. But I do love the comics and I do love the characters. Um, so, we'll do reviews of Zack Snyder's Justice League when it comes out, obviously, because we're both very, very, highly anticipating that.
Yes.
News, the comic news that we see we want to talk about, but mainly it's just going to be us talking about comics and the comics that we love, the comics that we read, and DC Universe Online, and other movies that we watched and saw, and picking our favorite Justice League characters and picking our All-Star Justice League is something we've done 5 or 6 times already.
Absolutely.
We're definitely excited to get this going, get this out to people. If people decide that they like it, people decide they just subscribe, we're not going to create a Patreon. We don't want your money. We just want your involvement and interaction. That's all we want. We don't want any money, and we would never ask for any of your money.
No.
So, it's nothing like that. I almost positive we're not going to monetize this and put ads in it and stuff like that. And we probably don't even know how to do that anyway.
So I don't know how.
So I'm definitely excited. And Chris talked about me getting him to other things, but he's getting me into this. I was, originally a little hesitant about the idea. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't want to be a YouTuber. But Chris, kind of poked and prodded at me. He's like, let's just do it. Let's just see how it goes. Just put it out there. So, we definitely, fill in the blanks for each other a little bit. I push him in places. He pushes me in places. And, I'm definitely excited. Try to get started.
Absolutely. I agree, and one thing we definitely want is interaction. Down, in comments when we put this on YouTube eventually, when we get this up, throw us topics, throw us ideas, throw us anything that you guys want to hear, want to talk about, want to listen to. We're pretty much, we're down to talk about almost anything dealing with these comics, these characters, these properties. We want this to be interactive. That's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is because, one of my favorite things that I got to do when I was younger, when me and my Uncle Richie would go to the comic book store every Saturday, was talking to, the owner of the comic store about everything. It was what comics were in, what team ups were happening, it was the conversations that we had were, what me and Blair continue on to this day. We were at Virginia Beach the one year my family came down. We did we did a little vacation, and me, Blair, my brother Corey, and my Uncle Richie sat around the pool and created our Ultimate Justice League. That's what we did, and that's the kind of stuff that we enjoy doing, and we want to enjoy doing that with you guys. So if you guys have any questions, any topics, like we said, shoot them over.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna put this up. This episode is probably, when we watch it back, we're gonna be like, oh man, that was rough. But this is my first time doing it. This is Chris's first time doing it. We're gonna put it up. Probably gonna be raw and unedited, because neither of us know how to edit anything.
It's true.
Like I said, we're putting ourselves out there. This is how we are every day. We're not putting on a show. We're not trying to create a character. We're not trying to create a persona for the internet. This is just two guys who love comics, putting themselves out there just how they are every day, talking about them. And that day that Chris was talking about, when we went on vacation down in Virginia Beach, I still remember that day. I still remember talking about our All-Star Justice League and how Hal Jordan would have been our Green Lantern, and stuff like that, and why. So we're definitely going to get in topics like that. Some, down the road, we're going to do an episode about, we're going to put together our all-time favorite Justice League, and we're going to tell you why.
Yep.
So those are types of things that we're going to do. Definitely shoot us comments, likes, wherever. I think likes get more people see it. I'm not real versed on YouTube, but but I mean that's really how it is. If you enjoy it, we enjoy you watching it. I think we're gonna end it there for episode 0, and we're gonna try to do one of these a week.
Yep.
Work during the week and have weekends off, so we're gonna try to do one of these a week. Put it up possibly on Sundays or Mondays, depending on how the editing process goes. So we'll definitely try to get that first one up there, and looking forward to meeting all the people out there and putting this content out.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna end it there for episode 0 of the Under the Fatherhood podcast. So good night and God bless.